Hello, everybody. We are glad you're with us for this special news update on WFAA Plus on this Saturday evening. I'm Teresa Woodard. Right now, we are tracking developments out of the Vatican. Pope Francis remains in critical condition in Rome tonight. The Vatican says the Pope suffered what is being called a prolonged asthmatic respiratory crisis. Now, the Pope has been in the hospital since Valentine's Day after suffering from bronchitis. He is 88 years old. He was diagnosed with pneumonia on Tuesday. Not only did the Pope receive a breathing treatment because of the difficulty he was having, but he also had to receive a blood transfusion. Francis has been the Pope since 2013. We have brought in WFAA's Cynthia Izaguirre tonight to give us a little bit of perspective. Cynthia, you have covered the Catholic Church extensively in your years here in North Texas. So let's talk a little bit about Pope Francis first. Some people would call him just absolutely transformational, certainly advancing the Catholic Church in many ways, but in some ways that has made some Catholics a little bit uncomfortable. So if you could just give an overall, what would you say is the kind of impact that Pope Francis has had?
Well, he's had a tremendous impact, commonly referred to as the most liberal Pope in the history of the Catholic Church. Some conservatives within the church feel, in some sense, Pope Francis was not in the same line as former popes like John Paul II, Pope Benedict. Remember what he said in 2013, "Who am I to judge?" in response to questions about gay people in the Catholic Church. On the flip side, Teresa, some liberals feel he has greatly improved the image of the Catholic Church, but perhaps has not gone far enough to push for more change, more equality. But largely, the Pope has reminded Catholics worldwide that God and Jesus is love, and that his greatest teaching is to love one another. For instance, the Pope has been a strong proponent of reminding people that we're told in the Bible to welcome the stranger, and a lot of people do not like that, which has led to anger both inside and outside of the church. Francis can be very off the cuff, and his remarks have angered some, made others very proud, but he has always stuck with the same message, Teresa, that God is love.
And I think we could see in him a real effort to be just of the people. At least that's what it seemed like from afar watching him. You know, he did away with some of the pomp and circumstance, and he just kind of, it seemed, wanted to be just among the people. Simple, yeah. Okay, so there's a name that's going to be very recognizable to a lot of North Texans. He will be playing sort of an outsized role if and when Pope Francis does pass. That will be Cardinal Kevin Farrell. He is the former bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Dallas. When he was here, we knew him as Bishop Farrell. What have you learned about the process and what role he will be playing, Cynthia?
This is probably why I'm here tonight.
Yes.
He would play a huge role. Pope Francis appointed Cardinal Kevin Farrell as Camerlengo of the Holy Roman Church on February 14th, 2019. So that was just about 6 years ago. He is one of the Pope's most trusted advisors. That's why he was appointed as Camerlengo. Cardinal Farrell would oversee the declaration of the Pope's death in the event that happens. He would also, Teresa, oversee the Vatican until a new pope is elected. This is huge. His main duty would be to oversee the College of Cardinals and handle the conclave, which is the papal election. In fact, right now is a good time to watch the movie Conclave, which might serve as a bit of a reference. Cardinal Farrell was beloved as the bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Dallas. He was here for 10 years. He still has a lot of very close friends here who I have spoken with today. They are all praying for the Pope and for Cardinal Farrell, who must be very concerned right now for Pope Francis. I know Cardinal Farrell would ask us to pray for the Holy Father. Again, Cardinal Farrell, very close ties here to North Texas. There's a big dinner for the Catholic Foundation tonight. It's underway right now, and I know they will be, the Pope will be the center focus, praying for him, lifting him up in prayer, and also the Cardinal.
Most definitely, and I'm sure he has been the focus of Saturday evening masses across North Texas and across the world, and will be again tomorrow morning. Earlier this evening, I had a chance to speak with Bishop Michael Olson, who is from the Fort Worth Diocese. We talked not only about the Pope's condition, but also about what the Pope means to him. Take a listen to this interview. I guess a bit of a personal question to start with. How are you processing this news? How are you feeling knowing that Pope Francis is now in critical condition, and certainly I'm certain your prayers are with him?
Well, that's how I'm responding, mainly is prayers for him. that he not have pain, and then if it's God's will, that he recover. Even at age 88, though, and with chronic health conditions, it's obviously a very grave situation, and all of our prayers are required for him to have a quick recovery or a blissful death.
Can you tell me what this Pope has meant to the church and maybe to you personally?
Well, I'm very grateful to the Holy Father for he entrusted me by calling me to be a bishop and the Bishop of Fort Worth, Texas, now some 11 years ago. So personally, I feel very connected to the Holy Father. But also, I think Pope Francis, you have to go back to the circumstances surrounding his election. I mean, he was elected after the first papal resignation in hundreds of years. Um, he was elected at the age of 76 at a time in life when most of his contemporary bishops were either already retired or considering retired. And he took this election as in a sense of a call from God. And he said yes to, and it's been very much a share in the cross as he's been entrusted with oversight and governance. I think uh, he's very much spoken about the importance of the missionary character of the church, seeing the church very much as a field hospital for those wounded by the modern age and post-modernity, and the effects of that, and how the church has to be, always applying the medicine of mercy, which brings healing and love in the truth.
Such a beautiful way to describe him. I feel as if he seemed to make it a mission to uh, be among the people. I know some of the things he decided during his time was, not to necessarily be showy, but to be just among the people. Was that something that you took from him?
Yes, he's very down to earth. I mean, there's the phrase that he used regarding the call to be a bishop is to be a shepherd who has the smell of the sheep, and in a sense that is known by the sheep and is among the sheep. And as he said, sometimes walking in front of the flock, sometimes walking amidst the flock, and sometimes walking behind the flock, but always mindful of the responsibility to protect the flock from both the wolf and the hired hand.
That's great. Talk to me about how would you counsel Catholics, not just in Fort Worth, but maybe across Texas and across America right now? What would you counsel them about this situation, and what should be on their minds, in their hearts, and in their prayers?
Well, I think most of all, the most important thing that they should do is pray. Pray for the Holy Father that he not suffer unduly, that he be prepared should death come, that he's prepared to meet the Lord. And it's mindful for all of us that we're all going to face death someday, and we're all going to face Almighty God, and we'll be giving an accounting for our lives. And so it's a good time for us to pray for God's mercy, and really evaluate our lives about, do we love God and do we love our neighbor as He's called us to do? And I think that's a very important thing for all of us to do, but particularly for Catholics as we walk with the Pope at this very, very dire and important time in his life.
Tell me, if you can, I've read a little bit about Cardinal Kevin Farrell, who many of us in DFW remember from his time in Dallas. Can you explain a little bit about it? It seems as if he will have a large presence whenever the time comes. Should it be now or should it be in the future? As you said, God's will, we don't know how long we'll have this Pope with us, but it feels as if Kevin Farrell will have a large presence. Can you talk me through what he will be doing and what you know about the Cardinal?
Sure. The office that the Cardinal holds is known as the Camerlengo, and it's his responsibility to handle just basic oversight of the affairs of the church, sort of like the daily business. in consultation with the other members of the College of Cardinals until the conclave begins. It's his responsibility as well to make sure that the conclave convenes and is held in a way that's in conformity with the norms provided by canon law. And so his responsibility is very much that of giving oversight in a humble and really understated way. And because his role is especially calls on him for collegiality with the other cardinals, and that the norms are upheld for the very important process that we believe is guided by the Holy Spirit of electing a new pope.
And I believe your time overlapped with Cardinal Farrell.
Yes.
Okay. From just a personality-wise, from knowing him, does his personality fit the role that he will have to step into?
Oh, Cardinal Farrell, excuse me. He's most flexible in being able to do whatever is asked of him by the church, and I know he's more than capable to carry out these functions.
Very nice. Just a couple more things for you. Are you learning just as we are through news coverage, or is there a channel that you have direct from the Vatican about his health?
No, really, I don't have any direct through the Vatican. I mean, I have colleagues and friends who may have seen the Pope in the last, several days or weeks, and they've expressed to me, their concern for him. The hospitalization is very serious. I've been following just, on the news, particularly the Vatican website, Vatican News, as far as that's concerned. So I don't have any inside gossip or anything like that, but it's certainly a very grave situation that calls for our prayers.
I think that'll do it, Bishop. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to say, or any final thoughts about, like I said earlier, sort of how we should be thinking about things or praying for things?
Well, I think it's just very much, I think the prayer is the most important part, because for Catholics especially, the church is not just a political organization, but it very much has Christ at its origin. And even though we're all earthen vessels and we're all human beings in need of conversion, it's really important for us to see the hand of God in all of these matters, and to pray that we're disposed to do what the Lord asks of us at all times. So thank you.
Oh, wow.
Very grateful for Bishop Olson to give us a few minutes of his time and some of his thoughts, because these are difficult times. These are heavy times. And I think it's a struggle perhaps for some to know what to pray for.
Absolutely.
Do you pray for healing? Do you pray for comfort? What exactly should you pray for? And you heard the bishop there say no suffering, and for God's will.
And do you pray for preparedness?
Right.
Like he stated there about the Pope. I mean, is the Pope prepared for that possibility, the possibility that we all face, but for preparedness? And you often hear the Pope asking us to pray for him. So now more than ever, we should pray for him, lift him up in prayer that he is prepared.
And of course, none of us knows exactly what the future holds. Could the next hours, could things change over the course of hours or days or weeks? We just don't know. But in the event that we do lose Pope Francis, we wanted to get more perspective on exactly what would happen next. And so we are bringing in Dr. Susan Hansen. She provided expert analysis when Pope Francis was elected Pope.
That's right, Teresa. Dr. Hansen is a historian. She teaches history at the University of Dallas, a private Catholic university. Dr. Hansen, thank you for making time for us. We know you and the university are praying for Pope Francis tonight.
Certainly. The University of Dallas has a very special connection to the papacy. It is a Catholic university, and it's a Catholic university that has a campus in Rome. And so every year we have about 100 or so students studying in Rome. All of our students study in Rome for at least 3 months. And so we have a very close connection to the papacy. We have experts on John Paul II's teaching and life, and we have experts on Benedict XVI's teaching and life. And the students go into Rome to go to the events with Pope Francis regularly, and talk with him and tell them tell him that they're praying for him. So it really is a kind of family connection between students at the University of Dallas and all three of these popes of my lifetime.
Yeah.
Pope Francis was elected Pope on March 13, 2013. You helped to guide your students through that process 12 years ago. Can you briefly explain how the conclave works?
So it's very interesting. Most of my students don't remember any pope except for Pope Francis.
Wow.
Whereas I was very much what we call the John Paul II generation. John Paul II had the longest papacy in the history of the church. And so really for all of my childhood and my adult years, John Paul II was the Pope. Then there was the very brief papacy of Benedict XVI before he resigned, which was huge and historic. And then the election of Pope Francis. But many of my students don't remember the years of John Paul II and Benedict XVI, where they were very much focused on stabilizing the church after the Second Vatican Council, making it clear to people that the teachings of the church had not fundamentally changed. The teachings of the church on faith and morals had not fundamentally changed in the wake of the Second Vatican Council because there was much confusion. And I think that Bishop Olson said it very well when he said that Pope Francis seems to have kind of turned away from that emphasis on sort of the internal stability of the church to a kind of missionary focus. And his first visit to the United States in 2015 was in order to canonize, to raise to the altars, as we say, Saint Junipero Serra, the great missionary of the Catholic missions in California. And so this has always been an important part of his papacy, is this idea of going out to the peripheries, of being missionaries, of reaching people who perhaps have not encountered the gospel yet.
We've talked a bit about the role that former Dallas Bishop Cardinal Kevin Farrell will be playing. He was elevated to Camerlengo about 6 years ago. Could you put it in some perspective for us, exactly what will happen should we lose the Pope?
Right. So within a couple of weeks, all of the cardinals from all over the world, and of course the Catholic Church is, from a historical perspective, the oldest and largest institution in world history. And so cardinals, about 150 cardinal electors, will go to Rome and they will elect a new pope under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. And I remember that everyone pretty much knew that Benedict XVI was kind of John Paul II's hand-picked successor. And so they didn't expect the conclave to take very long. And in fact, it only took 2 votes.
Or 2 days.
2 days and 2 votes, right? So there's 2 rounds of votes, and you see gray smoke if they have not yet
right.
If they have not yet elected a pope, and white smoke means that they have elected a pope. People thought that it might take a little bit longer with Pope Francis because of the church being, I think, in some shock after the resignation of Benedict XVI. But again, it only took 2 days. So it could happen very quickly.
As Camerlengo, though, the cardinal, what would be his role over that conclave?
So he'll be orchestrating the gathering of the cardinals. Usually there is an opening mass. I remember Benedict XVI giving a very beautiful sermon on the danger of relativism in modern culture at that opening mass before he was elected pope. And so basically the Camerlengo is the host, right? The host for the College of Cardinals.
And he would oversee, we understand, during the period that there is no pope, oversee the day-to-day duties of the Vatican.
That's right. That is correct. So there's a lot that the papacy is involved in, and in some sense, we've just had this experience in the United States of having an inauguration and that kind of lame duck period, which lasts all the way from November all the way to January. In the church, it doesn't take that long. It's not going to take months and months. But yes, Cardinal Farrell will be an important figure at that time.
And we know he is still deeply involved with the University of Dallas.
Yes, when he was bishop, he was the chancellor of the university. So the local bishop is always the chancellor of the university. And right now, our administrative building is named Farrell Hall after him. And he also helped to take care of a number of important meetings on the mission to families in the church over the course of those years.
Well, we know that you are praying for Pope Francis, as we stated at the beginning of this interview. Dr. Hansen, as we wrap, what do you believe has been the Pope's impact, in your opinion?
Well, I think that this missionary spirit, right, this idea of trying to reach everyone, and not just Catholics talking to Catholics or Catholics talking to other Protestants, talking to other Christians, right, but trying to meet the people who have not yet encountered Christ in our modern world, people who have become agnostic, who have become secular. I think that emphasis on going out and doing missionary work has been an emphasis of his papacy.
Dr. Hansen, we can't thank you enough for joining us on short notice on a Saturday evening. And I'm sure as the days and weeks progress, we'll come back to you for your expert input. It was great perspective tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think it's so interesting because, you know, she was saying that many of her students don't recall anyone other than Pope Francis.
They're the younger generation.
You and I would not be in that bucket by any means, but it is interesting because I do think, you know, we recall going through this more than once in our lifetimes, but there is a generation out there who hasn't been through it or doesn't really remember it. And so as we do progress, and we don't know, of course, as we said, we don't know what the future holds. But as we progress, there will be a lot of people who are trying to refresh their memories about exactly what does happen, what the process looks like.
Yeah, and again, she was correct in that the last conclave 12 years ago, it only took 2 days to elect Pope Francis as Pope of the Holy Roman Catholic Church. But you know, we don't know in the event we lose the Holy Father, we don't know how long that process could take. It could take 2 days, 2 weeks.
And I can't recall how long it took when Pope Benedict became Pope. I feel like that was a longer period of time, but I just don't recall.
I don't recall that either. Something good to look. We'll be looking up a lot of information
We will.
In the days ahead, but more important than anything right now is to lift the Holy Father up in prayer.
Yeah, I was just looking earlier. I was seeing, you know, there's of course people across the world who are reaching out in prayer, and in Buenos Aires they now have his image displayed on an obelisk in the middle of a square in Buenos Aires, and you know the whole world is struck by this, and the whole world is praying for the pontiff.
And in the Catholic Diocese of Dallas, there is an ongoing prayer for the Holy Father happening right now. So if you go online, you can join in on that prayer. It is around the clock, lifting up our prayers for the Pope.
Cynthia, thank you very much for all of your perspective tonight. Great to see you on a Saturday evening. Again, we thank you for sort of dropping all of your family duties and coming in to share what's very important expert analysis. So thank you for that. Please join us tonight on WFAA News at 10 because we will have more on the role of Cardinal Kevin Farrell. You will also be hearing from a North Texan who met Pope Francis just a few weeks ago. So a lot more coverage to come in the hours and weeks ahead. Right here on WFAA Plus and again on WFAA. So Cynthia, thank you. And thank you all for joining us tonight. We will see you again for WFAA News at 10.
Good night.